The judge asked him directly, "Mr. Caldwell, under oath, do you have any assets, accounts, or holdings not listed in this disclosure?" Raymond Caldwell looked the judge in the eye. He straightened his tie, and he said, "No, Your Honor, I have nothing." At that exact moment, in a storage unit 12 miles from the Houston courthouse, there were 6 banker's boxes containing handwritten ledgers documenting every dollar he had moved, hidden, and transferred over the previous 22 months. $14.3 million. And the man who had packed those boxes into that storage unit was sitting in the 3rd row of the courtroom gallery, watching, waiting for the right moment to hand them over. Laura Ann Caldwell was 41 years old when she finally admitted to herself that her marriage was over. She was a licensed architect based in Houston, Texas. She had graduated top of her class from Rice University in 2004. She had a gift for structure, for seeing exactly how things fit together and what holds them up. She had met Raymond at a mutual friend's barbecue in the summer of 1906. He was loud in the best possible way, funny, magnetic, full of ideas about what he was going to build. He had a small construction outfit at the time, 4 employees, 2 trucks, and more ambition than capital. Laura saw something in him that she believed in completely. Within 18 months, they were married. Within 3 years, she had left her position at a respected Houston architecture firm to work full-time developing the structural design division of Raymond's growing company, Caldwell Construction Group. She gave up her professional license renewal. She gave up her independent client relationships. She gave up the career she had spent a decade building, because she believed they were building something together. And for a while, it looked like she had been right. By 2015, Caldwell Construction Group had become one of Houston's most recognized mid-sized commercial contractors. $12 million in annual revenue, 63 employees, contracts with the city of Houston, 2 hospital systems, and a major retail development chain. Laura had designed 11 of their completed projects. Her fingerprints were on every wall they had ever built. But her name was on none of the ownership documents. Raymond had always handled the legal structure of the business. He had always told her that was simply more efficient. She had believed him. There were small moments over the years, a bank statement she was asked not to worry about, a meeting she was excluded from without explanation, a phone call Raymond took outside in the driveway at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night. She had told herself those things meant nothing, but she had been telling herself that for years. Raymond Dale Caldwell was 47 years old, and he had been planning his exit for nearly 2 years before Laura ever suspected anything was wrong. To Houston's construction community, Raymond was a self-made success story, backslapping at industry dinners, generous with job site visits, the kind of man who remembered every subcontractor's birthday and every foreman's kid's name. But Raymond had a problem that had nothing to do with business. He had met a woman named Kristen in 2018 at a contractor conference in Dallas. He had been seeing her quietly for 2 years, and he had decided, with cold and total clarity, that he wanted his next chapter to begin without Laura in it. But Raymond also understood something that most men in his position don't stop to calculate. Under Texas community property law, everything built during a marriage belongs equally to both spouses. Every dollar Caldwell Construction Group had earned since 2007 was legally half Laura's. He was not willing to accept that. So Raymond did what calculated men do when they decide the law is an obstacle rather than a boundary. He began to make the money disappear. He had started in March 2019, quietly, methodically, the way a man builds a wall, one brick at a time, so slowly that no one notices until they are already on the wrong side of it. Raymond's scheme was not complicated. It was something far more dangerous than complicated. It was simple, and it was patient. In March 2019, Raymond hired an outside accounting firm, separate from Caldwell Construction Group's existing auditors, and began restructuring the company's internal financials. He told his staff it was a routine modernization. It was not routine. Beginning April 2019, Raymond started routing construction contracts through a separate entity he had registered 18 months earlier in Nevada, a shell company called Lone Star Development Partners, LLC. Payments that should have flowed into Caldwell Construction Group's operating accounts were instead partially redirected to Lone Star. The redirected amounts were structured to appear as legitimate vendor payments on the main company's books. By December 2019, he had moved $2.1 million through this method. But Raymond was thinking bigger. In January 2020, he began the second phase. He approached his oldest friend, Marcus Webb, a former business partner who now ran a small property management company in San Antonio, and made him a proposition. Raymond would transfer ownership of 3 commercial properties to Marcus on paper. Marcus would hold them. After the divorce was finalized and the dust had settled, Marcus would transfer them back. Marcus Webb agreed. Those 3 properties had a combined appraised value of $6.8 million. Over the following 8 months, Raymond also drained the company's equipment reserve fund, $2.4 million, by issuing fraudulent vendor invoices to fictitious suppliers. The invoices were approved by Raymond himself. The checks were deposited into accounts that existed only on paper. By November 2020, Raymond had successfully hidden $14.3 million. Then, in February 2021, Raymond walked into his attorney's office and filed for divorce. 2 weeks later, in response to mandatory financial disclosure requirements, he submitted a sworn affidavit to the Harris County District Court stating that Caldwell Construction Group had suffered catastrophic revenue losses during 2020 and was effectively insolvent. He listed his personal net worth as negative $240,000. He told the court he had nothing. What Raymond had not accounted for was a man named Gerald Foss. Gerald Foss was 53 years old. He had been Caldwell Construction Group's chief financial officer for 11 years. He had watched Raymond build the company. He had watched Laura design its foundations. And he had watched Raymond systematically hollow it out from the inside over 22 months. Gerald had kept records. Not because he had been planning to expose Raymond, but because Gerald Foss was the kind of man who wrote everything down. Every instruction Raymond gave him, every transfer he was asked to process, every vendor invoice that felt wrong. He had documented everything in 6 handwritten ledgers that he kept in a fireproof box in his home office. When Raymond filed for divorce and submitted a sworn statement of insolvency, Gerald read the court filing in the Houston Chronicle. He sat with it for 3 days. Then he called a lawyer. Laura had not seen the divorce filing coming in the form it arrived. Raymond had told her in January 2021 that he wanted to separate. She had been devastated, but not entirely surprised. The distance between them had been growing for years. What she had not expected was the financial picture Raymond's attorney presented. According to Raymond's sworn disclosure, there was almost nothing left to divide. Laura's attorney, Catherine Reyes of Reyes and Drummond in Houston, Texas, looked at Raymond's financial affidavit and felt something was deeply wrong. Catherine told Laura during their second meeting, a company with 63 employees and $12 million in annual revenue 3 years ago does not become insolvent without leaving a very specific kind of paper trail. And this trail has been cleaned too carefully. Catherine filed an immediate motion for forensic financial examination of Caldwell Construction Group's accounts going back to January 2018. Raymond's attorney, Preston Howell of Howell & Associates, objected strenuously. He argued the company's decline was legitimate and pandemic-related, and that the forensic examination was a harassment tactic by a bitter spouse. Judge Howell denied the objection. The forensic examination was ordered. 3 days later, before the examination had even begun, Catherine received a phone call from a man named Gerald Foss. He told her he had 6 ledgers. He told her he had everything. Catherine drove to Gerald's home in Katy, Texas that same afternoon. She sat at his kitchen table for 4 hours. She went through every page. By the time she drove back to Houston, she had photographed every entry in all 6 ledgers. She had the Lone Star Development Partners account numbers. She had the Marcus Webb property transfer documents. She had the fictitious vendor invoices. She had Raymond's direct written instructions in his own handwriting authorizing each fraudulent payment. She also had something she had not expected. A handwritten note from Raymond to Gerald dated September 2020 that read, "Once the fillings are done, she'll get the shell, and I'll keep what matters. Make sure the Q3 numbers reflect the loss. R." Catherine called Laura that night. She said 4 words, "We have him completely." The case was heard before the Honorable Judge Sandra Marie Trevino at the Harris County District Court, Family Division, Courtroom 11 in Houston, Texas. Docket number 2021-F-04872. Proceedings began in October 2021. Catherine Reyes built her case on 3 pillars. First, Raymond Caldwell had committed fraud upon the court by submitting a sworn financial affidavit he knew to be false. Under Texas Family Code Section 7.009, deliberate concealment of marital assets is grounds for a disproportionate award to the wronged spouse. Second, the Lone Star Development Partners transfers, the Marcus Webb property transactions, and the fictitious vendor invoices collectively constituted fraudulent conveyance under Texas civil law. Third, Raymond had perjured himself under oath when questioned directly by Judge Trevino about undisclosed assets. Preston Howell mounted an aggressive defense. He argued that the ledgers were the work of a disgruntled former employee seeking revenge after being let go. He submitted documentation claiming Gerald Foss had been terminated for performance issues in March 2021. Gerald Foss took the stand on November 8, 2021. He was on the witness stand for 3 hours and 40 minutes. He walked through every entry in every ledger. He explained every transaction. He identified every fictitious vendor. He showed the court the routing numbers for the Lone Star accounts and matched them line by line to withdrawals from Caldwell Construction Group. Then Catherine Reyes introduced Exhibit 41. It was Raymond's handwritten note. "Once the filings are done, she'll get the shell, and I'll keep what matters." She read it aloud in the courtroom. Then she looked directly at Raymond Caldwell and said, "Mr. Caldwell told this court he had nothing. What he meant was he had arranged for his wife to receive nothing. Those are not the same thing, and this court knows the difference." Raymond Caldwell looked at the table in front of him. He did not look up for a long time. Judge Sandra Marie Trevino removed her glasses and set them down with a deliberateness that made the entire courtroom go still. She looked at Raymond Caldwell the way a person looks at something they have fully understood and do not respect, and she began to write. On December 2, 2021, Judge Sandra Marie Trevino issued her ruling. She found Raymond Dale Caldwell in deliberate fraud upon the court. She awarded Laura Ann Caldwell 100% of all concealed assets, the full $14.3 million, citing Texas Family Code Section 7.009 and the deliberate, sustained nature of the fraud. She further ordered the immediate reversal of all 3 property transfers from Raymond to Marcus Webb. Marcus Webb was separately referred to the Harris County District Attorney for civil conspiracy charges. He settled for $420,000 in fines and restitution. Raymond Caldwell was charged criminally with perjury, fraudulent conveyance, and fraud upon the court. In March 2022, he pleaded guilty to 2 counts of fraudulent conveyance and 1 count of perjury. He was sentenced to 5 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice and ordered to pay Laura's legal fees of $380,000. Caldwell Construction Group, the company Laura had helped design, build, and sustain for 14 years, was liquidated as part of the proceedings. The day the verdict was read, Laura sat in courtroom 11 and did not cry. She had spent the last 8 months being told by Raymond's attorney that she was a bitter woman chasing money that didn't exist. She had known the whole time that it did. After the ruling, Laura walked out of the Harris County Courthouse and sat on a bench in the October sun for 20 minutes. She called her mother. She said, "It's done. He couldn't hide it forever." She designed the foundations of everything he built, and when he tried to bury her under those same foundations, he forgot that she knew exactly where they were. Raymond Caldwell thought the most powerful thing he could do was make $14 million disappear, but he had forgotten one thing. He could move the money. He could forge the invoices, he could lie under oath to a federal judge, but he could not make Gerald Foss forget what he had seen, and he could not make Laura Caldwell stop knowing what she had built. The court gave her back every dollar, and the record now shows exactly who Raymond Caldwell really was. Not the self-made man he performed for Houston's business community, but a man so afraid of a fair accounting that he committed 5 separate crimes to avoid one. If you were Gerald Foss, sitting in that courtroom gallery with 6 ledgers and the truth, what would you have done? Would you have stayed silent, or would you have made the call? Tell us in the comments below. And if this case showed you something about what greed does to people who were never as powerful as they believed, subscribe to Divorce Diaries. New true crime courtroom documentary every single week. Because no matter how carefully they hide it, the truth always has a witness.